Celeb Savant is a career retrospective type interview focusing on singers, actors, and industry experts. Join Barrett Edelstein now as he dives into the entertainment world.
Australian Marlon's transcendent pivot from a professional AFL career into revered singer-songwriter has seen him co-write songs with a horde of hip-hop icons, also sharing stages with some of the greats in the process, passionately flying the flag for his musical influences as well as the story of his cultural history and identity. Whether teaming up with Earthboy, featuring on AB Original's powerful 2023 single Yes, 3%'s single A Black Australia Policy, Birds and Frank Leone's 2025 collaborative EP Gira, or wowing on the emotive 2025 Hilltop Hood single The Gift. Marlon's rich vocals and socially conscious lyricism has also seen him turn heads on stage at Womair Delayed, Bass in the Grass, and Party in the Paddock, as well as previously supporting the likes of Xavier Rudd, Pete Murray, and Hilltop Hoods. In 2026, Marlon released his debut single, Blood in the Water. Up next on Celeb Savant, we've got Marlon. Where in the world are you and how are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm in Adelaide, South Australia, in the southern parts of Australia at the moment, and I'm doing well. Thank you.
Okay, so now let's rewind. At what age, whether as a child or teenager, did you think, okay, I want to be in this music world, and how did that journey progress?
As early as my fondest memory was, that's kind of when I had music a part of me in my life. My dad was a student of music. He studied music, and so everything he was learning, he brought home to me. And so, right from an early age, I'd always had a guitar in my hand, and I was always listening to music.
So I saw you were a part of AFL for a period of time. It's a very different career compared to being in the music industry. How did that transition to then diving into the music world?
As early as I can remember, my family were involved in AFL football and a big part of, AFL sports in Australia. So, from an early age, I was a footballer. And then I guess, music was always a constant in my life. And so transitioning from being a professional footballer and AFL player into the music scene was a pretty tough one. I'm still dealing with it at the moment as well. It's a bit of an identity crisis sometimes, stepping from one sector to another. But it's something that I've learned to, enjoy the process of. And as I continue in the music scene and continue to create my own identity in this, I think it's only bringing about an opportunity for growth. And I'm loving it at the moment.
Generally, people in society, they put other people in boxes. They this, which means equals this, means I have to interact with them in this way. So now you've stepped out of the football world into the music world. So you've mentioned that you're still facing challenges, but how do you deal with those boxes that people put you in thinking, oh, well, he's a footballer, he can't sing or he shouldn't be singing type situation?
I think everyone will experience it at some stage in their life, whether it's like that imposter syndrome of, whether you're a banker or you're a shopkeeper, there's certain elements of whatever anyone does in terms of finding their identity and finding their sense of self in whatever they do. And I feel like for me, that imposter syndrome was, it's something that I kind of deal with all the time. And I think the opportunities that I've been fortunate enough to have, particularly early on in my career, were a lot of the times crossing back into that AFL scene where my identity was already established, So, I find great comfort in those situations where I'm out of my comfort zone. And I think those are the times where I grow the most. So I kind of look forward to having those opportunities or those situations where I feel like I'm an imposter in another person's body, but for me, it's a bit of a growth journey and it's opportunity for growth in terms of finding my value, my sense of worth, my sense of self in my identity and in this music scene.
A lot of people, if it's conscious or unconscious, they self-sabotage themselves from succeeding because their understanding is now, okay, I am now successful in this path, whatever that path may be, means I'm going to be held accountable. I now have to show up, pitch up, and do the work. So it seems that you are welcoming to be pushed out of your comfort zones. You welcome that fear to excel and expand. For anyone who may be sabotaging themselves in not allowing that to happen, what advice would you give them?
It's different for everybody, right? But I think like the biggest challenge is to identify that you're doing it to yourself. And I identified pretty quickly there were times where I would sabotage my own growth and my own opportunities within, particularly not just the music scene, but with a lot of things in life. You know, like I would count myself out of things before I even gave it a crack. And what got me over that was I found enjoyment in taking the risk and in finding the risk. And that was a little pocket of opportunity for me where I just found opportunity in growing and moving away from kind of that self-sabotage mindset. And that was really in kind of in the mud of the opportunity, in the risk of the opportunity.
How do you create a song?
Many ways. I feel like, to be honest, I feel like the songs are created somewhere in the universe before I put my name on it, and then I label it something. And that might sound kind of weird and pretty abstract to a lot of people, but you know, that's literally how it feels. Particularly, you know, the song that I just released, Blood in the Water, that was a song that I feel like it was just a strike of lightning. I wrote it in about 20 minutes in a tiny room in my hometown in Darwin, northern Australia. And yeah, it was really a strike of lightning, and it just flowed. And I think the biggest part for me was understanding when to get out of the way of the music, and let that shine through. My process is when I create, and the easiest times when I create is when I picture myself as a vessel and I just get out of the way.
Now, that situation of you getting out of the way, is that always happening? Or do you have to sometimes remind yourself to, okay, get out of the way and let the music come through?
It's a hard one because I think, you know, the most enjoyable times is when you learn to get out of the way and let the music shine. But sometimes you got to work through the mud and really enjoy the process and work through it to get to that point also. Sometimes it can be like pulling hair, but then again, you know, that's just a different element and a different look at the process. Some of the best songs also that I've written have come after days and days of working through the mud, working through the shit of it, and then getting out the other side, and then understanding that there's something there, and you find joy in knowing that you work through the mud, you work through the shit, and on the other side, you found something beautiful.
I know it's all secretive in your guys' world. You referenced the new song that you just released. What can you tell us is coming up over the next period of time?
Yeah, over the next kind of 6 months, I guess. You know, we've obviously just released Blood in the Water, which is the first single off a 10 single record LP, which is an album dropping in late July of this year. We're looking forward to that. It's very exciting. That'll be self-titled Marlon, and there's a number of singles that'll be released in the lead up to that. So yeah, it's very exciting, and I'm working with an amazing producer, Trials, also known as Dan Rankin, who's just released an album of himself, but I consider him one of the best producers in Australia and best rap artists and singer-songwriters in Australia as well.
I'm very excited to hear that you're releasing an album. A lot of artists these days, it's just about the EP, it's just about the singles. What was the inspiration to say, okay, I'm going to jump into that album world?
I considered all the options. I considered an EP, and when I got to the point of writing 6 songs, I felt like there was more to give. And I made a conscious effort, you know, when we go back to the point and the storyline of me transitioning away from that football life and trying to find my own sense of self and an identity from a singer-songwriter standpoint, I made a conscious decision to attack everything with everything I have. And that's pretty much what my decision to making a 10-track LP album is that, you know, I want to be able to create a body of work that, one, tells a story, but also tells the story of Marlon and who he is as an Aboriginal person in Australia and the struggles of our people, but also, you know, the struggles that I've had in terms of finding my sense of self.
Having now transitioned into the music industry, the professional world of it, are there any aspects of this world that you found surprising, that you did not realize would be part of being an artist?
I think just the beauty in collaboration. I think that's one of the favorite things that I've found, a little pockets of gold that I've found within, this experience so far. Everyone that I've collaborated with, there's a genuine connection, there's a genuine relationship there, not just from a writing and creativity perspective, but we're genuinely friends, and they're people that now consider mentors and look to for advice and guidance as well. So yeah, that's one thing. I knew it existed, but I didn't know what else it could come from it and what it truly meant. And so yeah, I'm very fortunate enough to have a circle of people in the music scene that have expressed their guidance and mentorship along the way.
Now, when you are creating, it's obviously very much a vulnerable space. So when you're collaborating with a new person or a new energy that you have yet to meet or collaborate with, do you dive straight in, or do you think, okay, well, let's just take time to get to know each other?
It's usually people I've already met through the scene. Like, I met Dan Rankin or Trials probably 7 years ago. And through working with him, I created a song with him and collaborated and continue to collaborate and build with him. And then through that, I met Hilltop Hoods. And then from that, I ended up writing with the Hilltop Hoods. And so, it's just like one opportunity leads to another. One relationship leads to another one, and another friendship leads to another. And I think that's kind of the beauty of it. I think I'm very lucky that it's kind of aligned and played out in that way, because that's very much who I am as a person. That's how my relationships and my networks have formed over the years, is just, trusting in people that are like-minded and have similar value sets and building in that way.
So I love me a CD. I still budget for my CDs every month. For me, it's an energy exchange to say thank you to you guys for all the hard work. I love the journey of the choice, the booklet, the unpacking, listening to song from 1 to number 10. I'm not sure if you are or not aware, massive uptick of physical around the world. I was reading in Variety a few weeks ago that last year in the US, $1.04 billion spent on vinyl, the biggest since 1983. 2 years ago in the UK, 5.9 million vinyls sold, again, the biggest since 1993. Last year, also in the UK, there's a basket of products that they gauge exchanges on. There needs to be a high number of exchanges daily for a product to be added to the basket, and they monitor it for tax purposes. Because of the upsurge of CDs again, CDs are now back in the basket. The research of all of this is that it's showing it's the teenagers, it's the younger kids diving into this world, not the older nostalgic people. Then we have Spotify and the streaming platforms. What are your observations of the landscape at the moment?
I feel like it's such a good space now, I think, transitioning out of, the heavy reliance on streaming and platforms like that. The transition back into the physical production of records and CDs it's timely, but it's also, I feel like it's such an opportunity for artists now to be able to generate revenue in another way, generate popularity, generate a following as well. Yeah, I feel like there's something in the physical publications and the physical production of artistry and songs and work as well, that one has that nostalgic feeling, but also, there's something around having a physical form of artwork that it stays true to the origins of what we do. So yeah, it's something that I'm heavily invested in. My record will be available in CD and vinyl as well. We've decided to make an actionable item for the release of this record. So yeah, I'm very excited on how that looks. And for me, as someone who's collected and kept all of his parents' records and vinyls, it's going to be a really surreal moment to see my vinyl sitting in there, amongst Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, and Sam Cooke.
You referenced earlier about having Aboriginal origins, and that's who you are, and representation. Having had that representation in the AFL and now in the music industry, how important do you feel it is for the general public to see themselves mirrored in entertainment, in sport?
From specifically an Aboriginal perspective, I think it's super important for all kids all over the world, no matter whether you're black, white, from another country or whatever. It's important for kids to be able to see their idols and see, their future careers or options and dreams and what they want to be. And particularly for Aboriginal children in our country, depending on where you live, some of our options and some of the luxuries that many kids have here are not available to a lot of our kids, particularly within remote communities. So to be able to turn on a television and see an Aboriginal footballer, lighting up the MCG or lighting up Adelaide Oval, or to see an Aboriginal musician singing in language or singing on a stage in front of 40,000 people, like that makes dreams reality, and that turn dreams into goals for young kids. So it's super important.
I love this next game. I know if I had to ask you this question tomorrow or in 2 minutes, I know your answer will be different every time. Very important. I'm not saying favorite. I'm saying top of mind. If once we finish this conversation and you want to listen to 5 other artists, who would those artists be?
Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Trials, Olivia Dean, Archie Roach.
The podcast is listened to throughout the world. As a final message, what would you like to say?
The world is in a very interesting place at the moment. And I think the easy option is to follow suit and follow the narrative of questions and questioning and assumptions and hate. But I think the easiest and the cheapest thing to do in the world is to share love and kindness. So I would say lead with love.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Celeb Savant. Please follow Barrett on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Celeb Savant. That's CelebSavant.